Hi everyone, this short video is going to talk about the academic summary and how to write and cite one. So let's begin. In this video, you can expect to learn what an academic summary is, why you should learn to write academic summaries, how you can write an academic summary, what a signal phrase is, and what some of the best practices you can use are, including some hints and tips for a good summary. So what is an academic summary? First of all, it's a complete and accurate representation of an academic text. This means that you're not just hitting the highlights, but you're doing everything, all of the claims, all of the reasons, and you're also giving an overview of the evidence. An academic summary is also going to show the argument and structure of a text. You can think about this a little bit like if you were summarizing a movie for someone. If you were summarizing a movie, you would start at the beginning and you would probably explain how the action of the movie happens and also why it happens. You wouldn't just give a random list of events. An academic summary is similar in that you are going to explain to your reader why the author of the article moves from point to point. An academic summary is also going to describe the organization, include all the main claims, and most importantly, an academic summary is going to be written in your own words. So you're not going to be using any quotes or quotations in your academic summary. So why should you learn to write an academic summary? First off, understanding a text is the first step toward using it. So practicing your skills in an academic summary is going to help you throughout your college career when you're dealing with the research process. Secondly, summarizing and taking the time to do a complete summary forces you to make sure that you understand the entire text and that you're not skipping over things that might be confusing still. You're going to need the skills that you learn in an academic summary to give context in your essays and your research projects throughout your academic career. And finally, summarizing can help you learn material more effectively no matter what course you're in. How do you write an academic summary? Writing an academic summary takes a few different steps, so let's go through some of those now. Step 1, you have to read your source material, and we're going to do this in a couple different steps. The first step is to read for content. You're going to read through the text carefully and actively, marking passages that you think are important, highlighting anything that seems to be something that the author wants to highlight. And finally, you're really going to make sure that you define any new or unfamiliar terms. If you skip over words, phrases, or terms that you don't understand, then you cannot possibly understand how to summarize it. Your next step in writing an academic summary is to read for structure and argument. So this is a little bit different than reading just for basic content. This time you're going to reread your text, and sometimes you're going to have to reread it multiple times before you really break it down. And you're going to analyze the text for the structure of the argument. To do this, you're going to look for the major claims that the author makes. You're going to identify where the overall topic might shift to a new idea, and you're going to try to identify the logic of the author's argument. So what do we mean by the logic of the author's argument? What we mean is, why does the author present the information in the order they present it? Why does the first point come first? Why do they use the evidence that they use? What are the different points that they're trying to make? This is a little bit deeper than just understanding the surface level of what they're saying, but it's something that's necessary so that you can convey it to your readers. Your next step is to plan your own draft. So there are a few things that you need to understand when you're drafting an academic summary. The first is your summary is always going to be chronological. Just like a summary of a movie that you're talking to someone about, you're going to take your reader start to finish through the article in order. Your academic summary should include all main claims. It should also describe how and why the evidence is used to support those claims. My recommendation is that you use an outline or an idea map. It's really important that you make a plan before you start writing. Often, students who sit down with the article next to them and just start to write from the beginning are going to lose steam halfway through and miss the second half of the particular article that you're working on. And in that case, what you're going to end up with is an academic summary that maybe starts off very strong, but then in the end ends up very weak or ends up missing the second half of the argument. And often the second half of an article is where an author really makes the most important points. So step 4 is that you're going to draft. You should always begin with some sort of an introduction so that your reader knows what it is that they're getting into. You're going to include the author's complete name. You're going to include the article and the source title, the publication title, the date published, and then you should have a sentence or two of any necessary context to help your reader begin. This might include information if the article is responding to a larger conversation, so that your reader understands what you already understand. Now, as you draft, you're going to write chronologically. You're going to start where the article starts and you're going to end where the article ends. Throughout your draft, you should try to use transitional words to indicate that chronology. So words like first, next, then, before, after, finally. As you draft, you're also going to want to use signal phrases and action verbs throughout. So this is to help distinguish between the author's ideas and your own. You want to make it really clear that everything in your analytical summary is what the author said, not what you think. And then finally, you're going to end with a conclusion that explains some sort of importance of the article or what the reader might do with the information. So let's pause here and let's talk about what is a signal phrase. Signal phrases are something we are going to be using all semester. A signal phrase starts with a source identifier, so that could be an author's name, an article title, or even a publication title, and it adds an action verb. So source identifier plus action verb equals signal phrase. Here are a couple examples. Deshawn Ashanti Young writes. The author argues. The article suggests. All of these phrases are going to help you situate the descriptions and the summaries so that your reader understands these are not your ideas, these are the ideas that came from the article or from another writer. And that's really important so that you can kind of claim expertise by reading. So finally, we're here at step 5, review and revise. You need to check and make sure that you've included all claims. If you started with an outline or a source map, that's going to be a lot easier. You want to check for transitions. Every paragraph should begin and end with a transition. And then within paragraphs, you need transitions to kind of explain how the writer goes from one point to the next point to the next. You also should check for signal phrases. You want to make sure that every time you're giving new information, you're introducing it with a signal phrase just to remind your reader these are the ideas from another author and not from yourself. So some best practices that we should consider. First of all, you want to use the author's complete name the first time you introduce them. If you have that introductory paragraph, that is already taken care of for you. After you use their complete name, then all you need is the author's last name. So in the case of ours, we would use Deshawn Ashanti Young the first time, and then each additional time, we would just call the author Young. You want to make sure you have clear topic sentences to help guide your reader through the summary. You want to make sure that you're using transitional statements that indicate chronology. First, the author does this. Next, the author discusses that. After they establish this, they move on to their next point. You want to use action verbs and active verbs in your signal phrases to describe. So the author is not always going to say. The author should argue, should posit, should support. So use lots of different verbs so that you can really describe for your reader what the article is doing. And you want to use a lot of signal phrases. If this is your first time writing an academic summary, you might feel as though the signal phrases are repetitive or that you're using too many. I promise you, you are not. The more signal phrases, the better, usually. Usually the signal phrase is going to really help your reader understand the article. Here's a few more best practices. First off, academic summaries are descriptive. So they're not just a list of random points, they're a description of the reading process. Your reader should understand both how and why the argument is made. They should be able to understand what the links are between the different points. Academic summaries are complete. So the academic summary can function in place of the original text. Your reader should not have to go back to the original text to figure out what it actually says. The job of the academic summary is to convey that to them. Academic summaries are neutral, so the reader should not know your opinions about the topic itself. This isn't really the place where you're going to say whether you agree or disagree with the author. And finally, academic summaries imply importance. So throughout your academic summary, you're going to use tone and language to help signal to your reader why they should care about this information or why the arguments being made are important for the larger conversation. So I hope this video has helped you get a sense of how to better write an academic summary. You can check out the link in our course website for an example of an academic summary. And of course, if you have questions, be sure to reach out to me through email.